Hello, right, so today we're going to be doing a little bit of baking, right? So I'm going to quickly talk you through, I'm sure you know it already, the rubbing in method. So what we're doing is we're recapping what you already know if you've done it before. Because sometimes, and I'm sure one or two of you may have forgotten the method. Right now, in pastry, there's, I think about three, there might be more, but there's three, at level one anyway, there's three basic methods that you'll be using when preparing pastry, right? One of them is called the rubbing in method. One of them is called the creaming method. There's four. One of them is called the folding method, and one of them is called folding, creaming, mixing, right? If you've got the mixing method, right, and it involves anything like hot water, the chances are you're doing choux buns. If you're doing the folding method, you're doing something to do with puff pastry. If you're doing the creaming method, it's something to do with sponge. Victoria sponge, Madeira sponge. Creaming the sugar and the butter. And if you're doing the rubbing in method, it's a pastry. Or shortbread, yeah? So, normally, I'm able, by the end, well, let's say the beginning of the summer term, which is about May, I'm able to tell a student the ratio, which is the amount, and the method, and they will walk away and they should know exactly what product I'm talking about. Let's talk about the rubbing in method. When you're doing a pastry, the ratio of the fat to the flour is half. So if I do 100 grams of pastry, 50 grams of butter. Pastry. Same rubbing in method. If I'm doing a shortbread biscuit, yeah? It could be something like 75 grams of butter, 100 grams flour, yeah? If I'm doing a scone, 25 butter, 100 grams of flour. So if you know what keeps on going down or going up, it's the butter. The amount of butter that you put, or the amount of fat that you put into the pastry, it changes it into something else. The other thing is, when you're making a pastry, you want to make it as short as possible. So the least water that you put into the pastry, you're going to get a better product. Yeah? Yeah. So I'm going to quickly show you how to make a really good short crust pastry. Right now, on a recipe, that's why I didn't put no recipes there, I just put all methods. Yeah? Because we're going to do a little different today. We're going to go, so I've got a white chopping board, put it up the side. I am going to use the table. Yeah? And approximately, I want you guys to weigh out, if you've got 200 grams of flour, 100 grams of butter, yeah? 100 grams of butter, right? Now, if you cube it up like this, I'm telling you, when you're doing pastry, it is always best to have the butter straight from the fridge. Some people, they melt it, and no. Because when you put the pastry back in the fridge, it does something to the pastry to make it more whatever pastry does. Yeah? Right? And so if we were working with the butter cold, we're going to get a better pastry than if we're working with butter at room temperature. Room temperature cakes, yes. Butter, pastry, no. Yeah? So scones, shortbread, pastry, what was the other one? Shortbread, scones, pastry, that's it, isn't it? And even apple crumble is shortbread. Because shortbread doesn't have any water in it. Nor does apple crumble, nor does the crumble in apple. It doesn't have no water. Yeah? So, here we go. I'm gonna get my butter. Yeah? And I'm gonna press it in like that until it all goes into the pastry. And then I'm gonna start to rub it until it becomes a sandy texture. Yeah? Now, it might be a little bit difficult to work with at this stage because it's a bit hard. But the results, I told you before, is going to be better than if you microwave the butter and it was soft. Yeah, you're going to get a better texture. Right? And then you're supposed to put the pastry in the fridge to rest, to relax. Right? Now, this is the part where a lot of people get it wrong. The water that I put in there, I'm not going to measure it. I'm not going to measure it. But what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to pour the water in, I'm going to drip it in. The pastry is supposed to be still a little bit dry. If you keep on working with the pastry, it will become tough. You want it a little bit dry to get that shortness, but you don't keep on working with it and working it until it becomes tough. Yeah? So some people use half butter and half lard, or some people use what you call pastry shortening. The ratio is still the same. So now I'm rubbing in, as you can see, that's how you got why it's called the rubbing in method. I'm rubbing it in until the butter, it looks like a sandy texture or breadcrumbs. Yeah? Once we get to that stage, now it's also a good idea, especially if you're doing rough puff pastry. We may do it at the end of the course. Yeah, make some sausage rolls, or make it from fresh pastry, yeah? Something like that, at the end of the course, for a little bit of fun and stuff like that. Because that rough puff pastry is really second year stuff, right? You know, once you pass all your first year stuff, who's to tell, eh? Right. So I've got my pastry, my butter and my flour rubbed in. It is good practice to have the water in the fridge or even in the freezer be cold. Yeah? Definitely when you're doing rough puff pastry. What I'm doing is just adding the liquid so that I can gather the pastry to one. Alright? Once my pastry is gathered, I'm going to stop putting the water in. So I could say to you, start off with 100 millilitres if you're not sure. 100 millilitres if you're not sure, which is very little down the bottom. But for me, I know that it might be too little. I don't even go back and forth to the tap. So I put half a jug. I'm not going to use it all, but it just stops me from going back and forward. Right? If you're not sure, put 100 millilitres or 200 at maximum. Right? Now, once again, when it comes to liquid and pastry, sometimes depending on the weather, depending on the temperature of the room, depending on the surface, depending on the flour, sometimes it takes more or less. And that's why it's not always good to exact the amount of liquid you're going to put in there, because it might vary according to the conditions. But if you know what you're looking for, you'll get the same results. We're looking for a short pastry, yeah? So you can see mine's coming together now. Yeah? Once all the pastry is gathered up, I'm happy with that. Still a bit dry, but that's going to be a good pastry. It will give good results. It won't be chewy and elastic. Still a little bit dry. It might be a little bit difficult to work with, but the end result is going to be fantastic. Yeah? So, get to that stage, and there's some fridges by your workstation. Put your pastries in the fridge, and we'll come back and we'll do the filling after. Yeah? Cool. Ooh, here I am.